I'm just really, I buckled down on my mental health because I understand that like I have to show up to a lot of things and I have to be a support system to a lot of people. And while that's an honor for me to do, I love being able to like be there for my friends and family. I'm like, it cannot continue if I'm not in a good place to give. And that bleeds into my personal life, that bleeds into my creative and career life. I am so important that it's a priority. Like I have to take care of myself. And so yeah, being able to like start therapy and be open about that, but also seeing my support system, and seeing the work that I'm creating in the midst of all this healing, I'm like, yeah, it's almost as if they can't go without one another. Like I have to be healing and have to be creating at the same time. I can't be doing all this healing without creating. It feels like the synergy between them two is very necessary. And it's just been nice to like be able to do work and know that I have a support system and a structure in place to continue this journey of healing in a very safe, loving environment. So yeah, I think it's buckling down on that that really helped me shift my perspective this year. Yeah.
Hey, this is Melarie Odelusi, and you're listening to the Rough Concept Podcast. Again, I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. The Rough Concept Podcast it should have launched in March, but I wouldn't call it procrastination as much as I feel like the timing is just right. And I feel like if I had rushed it the way I intended to and like, oh, we're going to power through this and get it done, it's just been unfolding beautifully. So I'm just super excited. So it's really to demystify the creative process and to empower other creatives and talk through our process and how it aligns with, I'm a bit of a sap, so I feel like my creative process aligns with like self-development and growth and holding space for ourselves in all aspects of our lives because we are the source of our creations. And
Yeah.
if we're not in flow, it ain't gonna flow right. So that's how I was like,
I love that this is your ideology and your approach because I think, yeah, a lot more people need to like approach their craft with a lot more kindness and
yeah,
patience and holding space and forgiveness. Because we get caught up in the idea of like perfection that we
yeah,
lose footing. So it's
yeah.
really nice to hear that that's your perspective.
Yes. And sometimes I feel like a little self-conscious about it because
Mm.
people are like, oh, you real deep with it. And I'm just like, that's the only way I know because growing up, being creative and drawing and stuff, that was my form of journaling. And
Mm-hmm.
that's how I got through like the roughest moments in my life. So yeah, I feel like it'll always be that. And I feel like a lot of people are realizing that it's more to the creative process than just pulling out your canvas or your paper. Like if you're conflicted or you're struggling or, in whatever season you're in, that's going to project in your work or how you
Yeah.
navigate your process. And it can be enjoyed, like you can enjoy it or you can struggle through it and power through it, but that comes out too. So
Yeah,
this,
absolutely.
this is definitely the podcast that I wanted to touch on it. And you and a lot of the other artists that I've met have been like able to get to know on social media. I was like, this will be perfect if we all came together instead of me just rambling in somebody's ear. Bring along, a lot of the people that I admire and I've followed for years. So you were like, definitely like, I was like, yeah, she
I
has to be a
appreciate
part of
you.
this. So let's get started.
Yeah.
So I know you've been moving around and traveling. Never have I ever.
I
Congratulations
know.
on that. That's exciting.
I can I'm still trying to like grasp what that actually is. But
Yeah.
seeing it at that caliber, first of all, thank you.
Mhm.
But seeing it on that caliber, it's surreal. And I think that's the first project that I've ever told myself, damn, like I'm pretty good.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned that in your story. And I was like, hell yeah, girl. I think when I first discovered you, I think it was when you did the basketball court. and it was like around 2019, 2020. I think it was before 2020 though.
Yes.
And to see you start there, and then all the collaborations and all the projects and your work and everything, like over time, like I've noticed how you've had this freedom in creating. Like I feel like you got to a point where you was just like, listen. And I think you said it in so many words one day in your stories, like, I'm just gonna create and I'm just gonna let this flow. I'm not gonna second guess myself anymore. And I think from that moment I was like, heck yeah. Like
Yeah.
I was like, you meant what you said. And then you just started to create with so many different mediums. And it's just been so inspiring to watch you navigate your own creative process in your
Wow.
journey. And thank you for sharing that with us. I mean, being on the other side, and as a freelance artist, as an artist, like, yeah, I have my journey and I'm like, don't nobody want to hear that. But whenever I see other artists talk about it, I'm like, oh my God, you have just saved a life today. So I speak for everyone who is a part of your community when I say thank you for sharing your journey with us, because it just empowers me to be like, all right, like she right. I need to stop overthinking this and worrying about people's validation and everything like that. But let's get started with the introduction first, because I was about to get into it. For anyone who hasn't like heard about you and your journey, I would love for you to introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I'm COVL, which stands for things that I feel like that as an artist I bring to the table, which is craft, onward, versatility, and lifestyle. I've been an artist for, I lost track of time, I think like over 10 years now. I've been freelancing, self-employed for 6 years of that. And yeah, I'm multidisciplinary, which is like under the umbrella of all things, different mediums. So I paint, I draw, I do murals, I've done basketball courts, I've illustrated, I've art directed, I've done capsule collections. Anything that allows me to flex the creative wings, that's exactly what I'll go for.
That's so cool. And where would you say this all started for you?
I remember when I was in Miami, and at the time I was a fashion blogger, and one of my good friends at the time was like, I don't think you're utilizing your skill set to the utmost potential. And I was like, damn, like I've been in the fashion scene for so long and you're telling me that my skills are not being used to the biggest potential.
Yeah.
So I really did like a lot of soul searching. I moved to North Platte, Nebraska for 9 months with my brother. I really sat down with myself and like understood that I love storytelling. Like the core of everything that I do is to tell a story. But how could I translate all these stories that I have in my head? And when I think back on my life and I think about how I grew up in a very chaotic, creative household. You know, like my parents were carpenters on South Beach. So a lot of the buildings that we see on Ocean Drive, they painted or they helped maintain. So I was like always in that environment. And I didn't connect it until like my mid-20s, where I was like, oh, maybe art design is like more my language. And that's how it all started.
That's what's up. And to like be in that environment, that's really, really cool. And I can see how that like went right through to you. So I think that's super, super dope. I admire your space,
Thank
and
you.
I loved whenever you started to like put things together and design it, um, and choose your lighting and everything and how you show it to us over time. Like, how do you believe that contributes to help you creatively thrive?
So I'm a big fan of color psychology. I did a deep dive on it like maybe like 2 years ago when I started to really like actualize the power of color. And mind you, as artists, we utilize colors to depict all different types of nuances. But like for me, it's like I want to feel it. And so when I'm in my space and I have to imagine what my space is like, I feel like it's a big hug. And so,
I love that.
so my lighting is very warm. Like on this side I have like a magenta, and then on this side I have red. In front of me I also have another magenta, and then I have like red over there. But it creates like this hue of like, you're good, you're safe, you're warm, you're protected. And it just gets me like in my body, and I'm able to like really tap into creating without any kind of bounds, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's so cool how intentional you are with your space. And I'm not really that educated on like color psychology.
Hmm.
I just know what colors I like and I just pick those colors, but
Yeah.
I know it's way more meaningful, especially in a space where you are creating, to consider the things that make you feel safe. Because I feel like
Yeah.
ultimately that's how we want to feel when we're creating, I think, a place of safety, to
Hmm.
allow everything to flow. So I think that's super duper dope. If
Yeah.
you
Thank you.
don't mind, I would love for you to touch on those colors, the magenta, the reds. Like, how does that contribute to, the human, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
So usually like the pink realm, like the magentas, the fuchsias, the pinks, they kind of like really tie into like love and kindness. And when you look at red, most of the times people think of like energy and pulsing. But in psychology, usually if you were to change your bulbs to like a more deep red or into like
Mhm,
a poppy red, your
mhm,
body starts to like calm down. And like it's usually like at the end of the day your body starts to calm down, and then you're able to like transition from work to sleep better if your lighting is different. If I was to be under fluorescent lighting right now, I would constantly be energized and annoyed because it's like
mm,
the lighting around me isn't really a conducive environment to be in, especially when you're working for long hours of a day.
yeah.
So when you think of like fluorescent lighting, I already think about like offices that are like admin and things of that nature. But if they were to incorporate either magentas or reds, your body would start to feel at ease and calm. So like even though I create really energizing bodies of work, my
Hmm.
body still needs to be at a level where it's like I'm calm, I'm cool. I
Yeah,
can
I
handle
feel
this
that.
workload. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I see those same colors in your work.
Yeah.
So that's dope. I love that so much. Love, love,
Thank
love.
you.
Let's get into the creative process.
Hmm.
So what does your typical creative process look like from the moment of like an experience, your idea that sparks your creative spirit to the final product? And it doesn't, I have to let everybody know, this could be just for you. It doesn't have to be for a
Yeah.
project, because I feel like with projects it's more technical unless like your client is fully aligned with like the things you believe in and you're passionate about it. So it's just kind of different.
Hmm.
So this can be like just for you, like for your
Yeah.
own work with COVL. So
Yeah, so I have three levels of speed when it comes to how my
it's different
meaning
every
if
time.
it's different every time. It definitely fluctuates.
Yeah.
But I would say like level one is like I mood board. I mood board, I sketch, I do research. I like to see what's on the market, what have brands done before, what
Mhm.
have artists done before, because I'm trying not to like cross those paths at all.
Right.
So sometimes I go into like a very traditional prep where I'm mood boarding, sketching, ideating, and researching.
Hmm.
My second level is sometimes I feel really confident where I can just dive into it for that first draft.
I love
Once
those
I
moments.
oh I wish all of them were like that.
Me too.
But I can, when I hear the brief and I close my laptop after the call, I'm like, I know exactly what I want to do.
Yeah.
And then the third speed, which is my personal favorite, and not everybody else's personal favorite, is I usually wait like 3 to 4 days before the project is due, and then I work on it.
And sometimes those mugs be working out perfectly.
Yeah, like you be stressed as hell. You start to go into a crisis. You don't know if art
Yeah.
is what you want to do, but then at the end of it, you're like, oh yeah, I did that.
Yeah, and I feel like we don't give ourselves enough credit. Like we've been doing this for a minute. So
Hmm.
sometimes like we have to sit with it for a minute for us
Yeah.
to get um to be prompted to start it or something,
Hmm.
or conversation, some random thought, and you're like, oh yeah, this is what I'm gonna do. Oh, I only have 4 days. Oh my god, I suck at this. Oh my god, what was I thinking? I'm so unorganized. Like it's
Yeah.
just like a spiraling thing, and then you get to the end and you're just like, oh, and then the client's like,
Hmm.
oh my god, we love it so much. Okay, great.
Yeah, it's that's been a work in progress. Like my partner and my manager, they're just like, there she goes, not I'm not surprised. And mind you, like, is it the most sustainable thing? No. But that's why I have three speeds, like
Right.
I have the options to really do it right every which way, but
Mm,
at least I have my options.
right. And I love how you um put it into speeds, because another thing with this podcast, I want people to understand, like, your process doesn't have to look like anyone else's, first of all. And secondly, your process won't be the same every time.
No.
But just acknowledging that and like giving yourself that, the grace to kind of navigate each process differently.
Hmm.
Cause sometimes you'll hit it right on the mark. And I love those moments. They don't happen often,
Yeah.
but when they happen, I'll
No.
be like, yeah. And the kids will come in my room and I'll be like, you gotta go. Give me 30. My husband's like, hey, baby. I'd be like, I need a minute. Like, I'm in the
Hmm.
zone. And, it just looks different. It doesn't have to look the same. And
Right.
I feel like I even came into, working with brands and clients thinking that it should look the same way every time, or it should look like this, or I should be
Mm.
delivering it this way. And over time, I've like realized what worked for me. But it's kind of freeing and it makes it better. It just makes it
Yeah.
more enjoyable. And that's when you create your best work. So I
Yeah.
love how you put it into speeds.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course. We're doing our best. So, and I feel like being an artist in today's society looks so different than it did maybe 10 years ago. So it's like
Yeah.
we as creatives and artists are really learning to have to adapt at quick speeds and trying to like pivot and figure out how to now translate our bodies of work into this algorithm. So it's like there's a lot of things that are changing. So I think our process needs to change with that and
Hmm.
be flexible. Because if not, then we're just going to be butting heads between trying to execute an idea and then our creative process, and they need to marry each other.
Yeah. I think it's a total rebel move to go at your own pace, regardless of
Mm-hmm.
like, social media. I mean, it does make it different for us now. Although it's really cool that people from around the world can see
Mm-hmm.
our work, there's this
Yeah.
pressure to keep producing and producing at a level that's just that's not sustainable. And
Mm-hmm.
it can be crippling to us, to you know, our creativity, our work and all of that. So I think it's like to choose, like, this is the pace that I'm in, this is the lane that I'm in,
Yep.
and show up for yourself in that way is contrary to what we're being told online to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you need to
Yeah.
show up, you need to be doing this, you need to be blah, 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 put your work out
Yeah.
there. And it's just like, like, I
At your
know,
own speed.
yeah. So it just helps with the total delivery. And I feel like the creative process it's a spiritual journey for me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and how I realize a lot about where I am, the season of life I'm in, the mental state that I'm in. So, do you ever feel that, like, over time, like, you realize things whenever you're just creating and you like discover certain things about yourself?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's a reoccurring thing all the time. I feel like whether it's brand projects or if it's like my own work that I'm creating here in the studio, I think it's every opportunity I get to create, it's another opportunity for me to really explore myself and get to know myself. Because as artists, we're continuously evolving every single day. Like
Yeah,
whatever work I created yesterday, I don't think it would be the same today because I'm
right.
always evolving in that craft. So yeah, something that I learned about myself is that like, yeah, I am not a perfectionist and I don't believe in the idea of perfection. I think that my work is gonna always evolve and I'm okay
Hmm.
with that. Like I
Yeah,
love the fact that I can look back 5 years ago. Would I show that? No. but
I feel
but
you.
I appreciate it because I understand that like my intent then is the same intent as of today, just to continue to get better.
Yeah,
And
and
and I
just
and I love knowing that about myself.
that's what's up. I love that.
Mm.
So, what would you say is your favorite part of the creative process and why?
Wow. Mm, I think it's that initial moment I get the idea. I
Hmm.
love that because it feels so new. It feels like building a relationship with someone for the very first time. You get like that excitement, that eagerness to get to know that person. And that's how I see the idea is like when I feel I have an idea, I'm like, I want to get to know this idea more. How can I figure it out? How can I get this to paper or canvas? So that initial spark is like my favorite, because then that sets the tone for the rest of the project.
Yeah, I love that too. I think the rough sketch too is like when I can
Mm-hmm.
get really messy with the
Yeah.
idea, and sometimes I'm like, I'm keeping these lines
Yeah.
because I feel like it's the most genuine and like low-key pure part of it's not like refined and finished. It's
Mm-hmm.
unrefined and still beautiful to me. A lot of the times that I'm like, I'm probably gonna do like a rough sketch collection series because it's just
Yeah.
like my absolute favorite part. But how do you believe that caring for yourself and your creativity and specifically your own like routines or for instance your lighting in your space, like what other
Mm-hmm.
ways do you take care of yourself and your mental health to contribute to your creativity?
Yeah, this has been a big thing for me this year. I started therapy this year. I'm seeing a therapist and a psychiatrist, and I'm just really, I buckled down on my mental health because I
Mhm.
understand that like I have to show up to a lot of things and I have to be a support system to a lot of people. And while that's an honor for me to do, I love being able to like be there for my friends and family. I'm like, it cannot continue if I'm not in a good place to give.
Right. Yeah.
And that bleeds into my personal life, that bleeds into my creative and career life. I am so important that it's a priority. Like I have to take care of myself.
Hmm.
And so yeah, being able to like start therapy and be open about that, but also seeing my support system, and seeing the work that I'm creating in the midst of all this healing, I'm like, yeah, it's almost as if they can't go without one another. Like I have to be healing and have to be creating at the same time.
Yeah.
I can't be doing all this healing without creating. It feels like the synergy between them two is very necessary.
Hmm.
And it's just been nice to like be able to do work and know that I have a support system and a structure in place to continue this journey of healing in a very safe, loving environment.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think it's buckling down on that that really helped me shift my perspective this year.
That's what's up. Yeah,
Yeah.
therapy has definitely been def- I told my husband one day, I said, bro, I don't see how people don't go to therapy. I'm just
I don't
saying.
know either.
I would like to sit with these thoughts on my own and unpack them up like by myself. It's just I get real unproductive real fast.
Hmm.
But I do appreciate you for sharing that with everyone. I mean, a lot of
Yeah.
people are a little, self-conscious to like share those parts of their lives, but I think it's really cool that you do that with your community. I think it's dope. So,
Yeah, and I think it's part of the human experience. You know, we've
mhm.
all to some capacity are suffering. We all to some capacity are going through something.
Yeah.
And I think it's naive for us to think that everyone's perfect, you know, like
Right.
everyone is going through something. And I think the
Yeah.
more we open up the conversations about that, the more the less isolated we can be in the process, you know. Like
Yeah.
the moment I started being open with my friends and family of like what I was going through, the less isolated I feel, and the more unapologetic I was able to show up in that kind of capacity. So I really encourage people to do that. Um, but I can understand that it's a tough conversation to be had.
Right, it is. And I feel like too, I can see how that contributes to your work and the flow of that too. Like, and just like
Hmm.
relationships.
Hmm.
I mean, because we're gonna have them in at many different
Yeah,
capacities. So in order to have healthy relationships, we have to be able to take care of ourselves. So
exactly.
100%. Um, I was going to ask you a question
Hmm.
about the different mediums you use. I seen you
Hmm.
go from the basketball court, basketballs, the mirror. You've done campus work. I saw that you were doing some spray painting too.
Hmm.
I saw you doing some stitching and threading. What would you say was the most enjoyable? And it doesn't have to be one thing,
Hmm.
but that you found was most enjoyable medium to try.
I love painting because I'm a digital girl, you know, like I started as being a digital artist, you know, so
Mm,
it's like I, at least for me, I'm like, I got really comfortable with the instant gratification of drawing on a tablet or an iPad or, you know, on my computer.
Yeah.
And you're able to like execute an idea a lot faster in the digital realm. With painting, it's like you gotta pump the brakes a little bit and go slower. Because I paint with oil, so I have to
A
take
real
time
one.
between, yeah. So like I have to do a layer of paint and then I have to
Mm-hmm.
wait some time for it to dry before I keep going. So
Yeah.
like this medium has really taught me patience in a very beautiful way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not in a rush to complete something. I
Mm-hmm.
literally just finished a painting that took me a month and a half. And in the video that I was recording, my hair went from blonde back to brunette. And
Mm.
I'm like, yeah, this is what it should look like. Like
Yeah.
working on your shit should look like it took you some time to do.
Yeah.
Um, and in the midst of that, you're probably having 1,000 conversations and you're stepping back from the canvas and you're like, I don't like that. So you try to figure out how to fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely taught me to like slow down with my work. Um, and I really love that. So that's painting has been like my favorite right now. Don't tell anybody I said that because I don't. My
We
studio's like,
wanna
she's
yeah. Listen, oil painting is something else. Like I think that's one of the mediums I'm like, bro, that'll
mm-hmm,
definitely slow you down. But I feel like that's something that's needed too. You know what I'm saying? So
mm-hmm,
I started with like watercolor and gouache and
mm,
doing lettering and calligraphy and got into illustration. And that was around the same time I had my daughter. So I was like, dang, I can't be pulling out paint. Like I tried.
yeah,
Swear to God, I tried. And pulling out paint and all of that. So when I discovered that's when I got into digital art. And that was around like
okay.
2017. And I was like, oh my God, when you said instant gratification, I said, oh God, this is addicting. So for so long, like even to work with brands and stuff like that, like it's just been a better process for me, and less stressful. Having two small children, now they older, so I'm like, go to school.
Mm,
But
yeah,
now I find it really difficult to go from digital art back to painting because
mm-hmm,
I want to capture that idea. And I've been used to going at a certain pace for so long. Now I'm like, and I know my spirit is like, girl, we just
yeah,
want to chill and we want to take this. I want to do this for a month and a half too. So just really trying to figure out the pace that I'm willing to, to take.
yeah,
But yeah, oil painting. When you said that, I was like, yeah, girl, because
yeah.
this digital life got me by the neck. I just love
Trust
it
me, I
though
know.
too. I just love it because whenever I started digital art, I was like, I still want to have texture. I still wanted to have
Mm-hmm,
that like art feel, like the
yeah,
traditional art feel. And I was going to ask you too, because me and someone else talked about this. She was a photographer, but she's someone that I co-work with a lot
mm,
since the pandemic. And I remember starting digital art and a couple of people would say like, "Oh, did you paint this?" And I'm like, "Oh no, it was digitally created."
mm-hmm,
And they were like, "Oh, okay. I thought you painted it." So this was
mm-hmm,
me at the beginning. I was just like, "What's wrong with digital art?"
right.
So, do you feel like there's this idea of value between the two, being a painter and the OG with
Mhm.
the oil painting? Because come on, what? And digital art, like what are your thoughts on that? Because I know a lot of people, I see a lot of people talk about it on social media too, like is this the same value? And I'm just like, yeah, like
Mhm.
not everyone can pick up you go ahead because I was about to start
Yeah.
rambling.
No, no, no. I mean, to your point, yeah, like it's I know a lot of painters that they can't even touch an iPad to save their life, you know? And then you have artists, like digital artists who, don't know the essence of painting. But I think there's value in both of them because it still takes amount of work and skill and craft to be able to execute an idea.
Yeah,
The approach is different, yeah.
yeah,
And the mediums used or supplies used are different, but the act and the sense of doing it is still the same.
yeah.
And I think when people want to debate that, I think it's because they're not familiar with either process
Got you.
when they
Yeah,
say that,
yeah.
because I did a painting recently and someone was like, did you draw that? And I'm like, no, that's just my style. Like my style looks like my illustration style.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh, I thought you like drew that on your iPad. And at the end of the day, even better, right? Like
Because it's still your style. And
it's
it's
still my
so,
style,
yeah,
you
yep.
know? And I think when people look at a digital piece and they're like, is that painting? I think that's a biggest compliment that someone can give us. Because it's
Mm-hmm.
like, we were able to manipulate you to think that it looked like a painting when it's a drawing. Sorry.
Yeah. Got you.
Yeah. So I think that's a compliment, you know,
Yeah.
and I think at the end of the day, there is value in both because I
Yeah.
understand that both takes work.
Yeah. Very true. So if anyone's listening to this and you do digital art, don't second guess that,
Right.
because a lot of people couldn't do it. Like one girl,
Yeah.
oh, I can't remember. She was like, "Oh, you just did that on your iPad? Let me see. I can probably do." No, you can't.
No.
You
No.
can't do it. You could probably get on here and draw, but
Mm-hmm.
you can't do this. So
Yeah.
that was something I really struggled with, going from like traditional mediums to digital art. And I freaking love digital art. Like I can
Mm-hmm.
do whatever I want and I
Yeah.
ain't got to run a Michaels. So,
Nope.
or I don't have to
You
run up
save your
the street.
coins.
Yeah, I don't have to run up the street to the art store. Like I can
Mm-hmm.
try any texture and make it work. It just made my life easier. It just made creating
Yeah.
more fun. And yeah, so I definitely wanted to touch on that because I know you touch a lot of different mediums, but
Mm-hmm. Especially in this economy, like,
come on.
you know, save your coins. It's fine. Like Michael's Blick right now got my pockets struggling.
Listen,
Okay.
I can make
Paint is
some
not
money.
cheap.
Yeah. I can make money on the supplies that I have in this room. Like it's ridiculous.
Resell them at crazy ass
Yeah.
value.
Cause everything, like almost everything I bought, it was like, what was it? 2020. Yeah, I think it was 2020, 2021. I was just buying up stuff like, I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna get into
Mm-hmm.
ceramics. I'm gonna do all the things. So but yeah, it's just
I
been a
feel that.
beautiful like journey, and yeah, just learning a lot about myself and the work. So that's all
Good.
fun. I love how passionate you are about Puerto Rico, and I really wanted you to share that
Mm-hmm.
with two, being a creative and holding space for things that matter to you, like subjects
Mm-hmm.
that matter to you, and how that can contribute to your work as well. So I would love for you to share that with
Mm-hmm.
us.
Yeah. Yeah. So I remember last year, PR was hit with another hurricane, and it happened to be around like Hispanic History Month.
Hmm.
And I was getting booked for a decent amount of gigs, but I was like thinking, how can the support extend further outside of just Hispanic Heritage Month? So I literally pitched to all the brands that I was working with at the time. I'm like, I'm donating this much. Can you match me? And I feel like that was important to do because most of these brands that I was talking to had no idea what was happening in PR. And it was
Right.
like, it was blowing my mind that like you're celebrating a community of Latinos and Hispanics, but you're not even aware of what's going down in my homeland.
Hmm.
So I think that was important to like advocate. And I think that people with platforms, there is a sense of responsibility to advocate, to enlighten, to bring the stories to the forefront, because I was just so surprised how many people were not aware of the crisis that is happening in Puerto Rico. And I think I think it's part of my responsibility to talk about it,
Yeah.
to advocate for it, to try to show up and provide like resources or just my platform alone.
Right.
Um, because at the end of the day, what's going on in Puerto Rico is happening to so many other different communities, you know,
Hmm.
so Black and Brown communities. And I think that like it's really important that we continue to like advocate and talk about these stories. So yeah, I just really felt, you know, PR is obviously in my heart.
Hmm.
It's my family, it's my history, it's my ancestry.
Hmm.
And if you have a platform, I think it's really important that we utilize that to the best of our ability. And so, yeah, this weekend is PR Day Parade, you know, like Puerto Ricans are out. They're about to be
Yeah, I
all over
remember you posting
Bushwick,
about it.
Queens. Yeah, like
Yeah.
it's great. So it's like we're able to amplify the history of it here in New York, but also lend a light to what's going on the island. So it's been beautiful to see that kind of support kind of unravel.
That's what's up. And I think
Mm-hmm.
using something that you love to do and that align with what you believe in and bringing light to what's going on, I think
Mm-hmm.
that's so much more powerful than a lot of the things we do with our craft.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the sauce too. Like you can use your art and as a tool to bring light to subjects and to topics that are important to you and that you
Mm-hmm.
truly care about and are passionate about. So I think that a lot more of us should be using it in that way. And over time, I feel like people will develop that,
Yeah.
understanding, just trying to find our footing in that as
Mm-hmm.
well and our voice and, ebbs and flows, seasons, like
That's it.
in life experiences, you just learn more about life and yourself. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that the way that you do it is just so beautifully done. I
Thank
didn't even
you.
know that you reached out to brands and told them like match me. Like
Oh yeah.
that
As
is
soon as
so
I wrapped, yeah, as soon as I wrapped the projects, I was like, if you really want to continue to support me outside of this month, this would
right.
really mean it. This would mean so much to me if you can match me on my donation. And I was able to secure, I think out of the 4 or 5 brands I work with, I was able to secure 3 of them. And
Hmm.
then I had an anonymous donation come in that matched me again. So I'm like, yeah, like this is what we need. Like
Yeah.
brands, I think some brands do operate at a very archaic level.
Hmm.
And I think as artists or as creators, we have more power in terms of like the conversations that we have internally with them.
Hmm.
When to your point earlier, when you were like, oh, you get to show up and really do the ideas you want to, it's because I'm constantly having these conversations with brands saying, if you're giving me creative freedom, that's what creative freedom means.
Yeah. That's very
It's not
true.
like you providing a feedback, it's allowing the artist and creator to really run free with the idea.
Hmm.
So I think, again, that's like the advocacy and the conversations that we have with brands internally, because the last thing I would ever want is the artist behind me to have to deal with the same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
And it just shows that we have more power to make sure that whatever we're producing for whatever brand, like speaks for what is true in like for us and what we believe in
Mm-hmm.
too. I think too with art and like, getting our exposure, working with brands, like being able to do this work, particularly for me, like whenever I started, I was like, especially if it's a brand that I wanted to work with,
Mm-hmm.
prompting them to do those types of things seems scary. And now it's just like,
Yeah.
no, if I'm gonna work with you, like we're kind of tied right now, like and whatever, however long I'm gonna use my art, whatever the
Mm-hmm.
terms look like, we're connected. So I just think it's so important for us to be very intentional with who we work with and how we work with them, and to know that we have the power to really kind of steer it in a way. Like you came to
Yeah.
me, you love my work, and there's a reason why. But if you follow me on social media, these are the things that are important to me too. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm still a
Mm-hmm.
human being with experiences and beliefs. So let's work that into it too. Like
Yeah.
just like you hired me because you need my work and you obviously
Mm-hmm.
love how I show up on here. Let's talk about how we can further engage what's, my interest and what's important to
Yeah.
me, as well as how it aligns with your brand. So I love that. And I think over time I learned that, like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm happy to be here, but you happy to be here with me too, boo. That's what I learned. I was like, my husband was like, bro, you're the CEO of your brand too. Like, yeah, they have a corporation, but this over here, like, we have a business too. So,
Mm-hmm.
get in there and start, negotiating and talking about like, the things that you want out of this project. And if it's not
Right.
aligned, then you need to reconsider. I
Mm-hmm.
messed up a lot of money because I was like, I'm not doing that. Like,
Nope.
people thought I was crazy, and I was like, I'd be crazy, but I still
Mm.
got me, and I can sleep at night with me. Okay, good.
Exactly. It's
Um,
especially when you have like an audience, like
yeah,
they at certain points of your career, they expect a caliber of intentionality, they expect
yeah,
a level of quality. And I can tell when I miss the mark a little bit,
mhm,
and I think it's really important for us to advocate for what we want to see more of in the world. And
yeah,
that starts with having to have those awkward tough conversations internally with brands.
Yeah.
Did I do that the first 3 years of working? No, because I was learning a lot.
Yeah.
But enter the 4th year, 5th year, I was like, we're not going to play these games. This is what you mean. This is where I would like to meet you. And you can do it in a very kind, open kind of way. It doesn't have to be like, you said, like,
Yeah.
I think we have a lot. I know we have a lot more power than we're left to think or believe. And I think in the society of today and what's happening with creators and artists and designers, you're starting to see a lot more of that advocacy happening behind closed doors.
Yeah.
And the infrastructure starting to change a little bit. Like, one thing I don't believe in is there's no reason why a brand should own my work until the day I die.
No, yeah. I don't like
That's gotta
buyouts.
go.
I don't
Yeah.
like them at all,
No,
actually.
no.
I'm just like, oh God, because they can use it and do whatever and that's why contracts are so important. That's the technical side of this.
Yeah.
But just to tap on it. But I feel you on that. Especially something that you created. I feel that 100%. That's when it gets to usage. I'm like, all right, let me go get
There's a time limit.
Yes. We're gonna have to stop you right here. So but yeah, I love that you touched on that. I love that you're honest and you bring us into that process too. Like you bring us into like what matters to you. And I think for me, it just prompts me to be more intentional with the things that I believe in, because there's a lot that I want to say, but I'm like, all right, Mel, let's reel it in, girl, because we can talk about what are the big things. And I think like with Black History Month and Juneteenth, like when I get those emails, I go to your resume. I go to your resume and I see how you've shown up consistently, because I'm like, I feel like it puts like, I feel like as an artist, I'm like, you put me in a box because there's so many levels to me. Yes, I'm a Black woman, but I like beauty. I like all these other things. Like I like to travel. Like there are many more layers to us than to just put us into these like days or months.
Yeah.
And I think that it just needs to stop. So
yeah. Like how can a brand or how can a company support people outside of this moment?
yeah.
Like, and I
As a
think now
human.
as a human that
Yeah.
has different interests and likes, like I said, it's just archaic. Like when I got hit up for all those brands, I was like, oh, it's because I'm Puerto Rican.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I haven't heard from y'all ever.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
I think for us, we're aware. Like we understand that this is just a box that many brands want to check off. But the way that we can control that is like how I did that with the PR situation. I was like, cool, you wanna hire me? Cool. How about you donate? Because that's what's really important to me.
Yep.
So yeah, I think little things like that really start to shift the needle a little bit when it comes to how brands collaborate with artists.
Yeah, I think these conversations are so important because it does show us that there are many ways for us to go about these partnerships and working with these brands. And some people need to see it done in real time, or to hear about your experience. That way they'll feel more confident to do that for themselves, Do you feel like that there's enough of us having these conversations in the art community? I know it's like influencer community, all these other, like, we don't even have like a box to check on some of these platforms and apps. Like, what do you do? And I'm like, art, but it's like content creator. I'm like, no, not that. Like, do you believe that these conversations are being had? And if not, like, how do you think we can kind of initiate or prompt these conversations so that more people are knowledgeable? And then two, it'll help us kind of move forward in how we like work and have these working relationships with brands.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think it's a conversation that's had enough. If anything, something that I've experienced within the art space is a lot of isolation. And I just think it's because everyone is just trying to create and get their work and, create a life of sustainability and stability. And I get it. Like, so there's a lot of like distance, I feel like, when it comes to the art community and the conversations to be had. I don't think they're had enough. And something that's something I've been thinking about a lot. It's like, how can we have these conversations?
Yeah.
Where can we have them? Who can we
Yeah.
have them with?
Right.
Like something that I've been really thinking about is what if I invited like a therapist that specifically works with creators and designers and artists and having like a roundtable talk about
That's
what is
good.
how do we sustain ourselves when we're down bad as artists? Like,
Yeah.
what does that look like? And having a professional kind of mediate and moderate that conversation. And that's been at the forefront, you know.
Mhm.
But I think you having this podcast is like very conducive and necessary
Mhm.
because we always hear artists or designers or creators on one side of the of the of the fence
Yeah.
where it's like what inspires you, what's this, what's that, but it's like there's so much many intricacies of an artist that we don't get to explore often, you know.
Mhm.
So I think podcasts like yours and just having the questions of like, are we having the conversation enough,
Yeah.
how can we have a conversation more, I think that is starting to like really show up a lot. um so I think it's like baby steps and being
Yeah.
honest about it. Like me
Yeah.
saying, yeah, I feel isolated in the art space.
Mhm.
That's just speaking honesty. And I know I'm not the only artist going through that.
Yeah, no, I was telling my
Mm.
husband, I said, "I'm such a loner." Like,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
need to like I feel like finding community is so important for us too. And what does
Yep.
that look like, for us as, artists. But yeah, let me know if you get
Yeah.
that therapist.
I,
I will tune in so quick.
yeah, I think it's such a good idea, and I think that also like lends a lens to people that have this idea of what artists are and what they do. And because like what are the tools I'm doing or reaching out to when I'm down bad with my mental health? How am I still
Right.
showing up to work?
Yeah.
How am I creating still? So I would love to have that conversation with other artists because once we can get it all on the table, we're going to start to understand that we have a lot of commonality within this
Yes.
space.
And
Yeah.
that's what I've learned. Like, you are, I think, the sixth or seventh person. And so many of us are on this journey and in a lot of ways a similar journey. And
Mm-hmm.
we just really have to start, like, that's how all this started. Like, at first it was just gonna be um a side note, like, I'll start with my storytelling, and each episode is a stage of the creative process. So I'll start
Mm-hmm.
with the story of like my journey and how it unfolded into like me creating a piece. I'll get into like how I'm navigating the journey now with the current work that I'm working on that'll be released at the end of the season. And then I'll use a clip from some of my favorite artists and they'll share their process or like a highlight moment of our conversation. We'll wrap it up with the creative prompt and then that's the episode. So it was just
Mm-hmm.
going to be like, hey, y'all, just send me clips. And a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people said, no, I want to have a conversation with you. Like,
Yeah.
I want to have, this should be a conversation. And I was like, you know what, you're right. And I did this human design test with one of my friends. And
Nice.
one of my biggest makeups is community. And I already felt like going into this podcast, I was like, I don't want to be the only one talking because there's so many people that I follow that share their journey. Like, I feel like
Mm-hmm.
everyone should hear theirs too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I was like, come on, y'all. So that's when I emailed everybody. And I can't remember who said it. I think it was another artist. And she was like, I wanted to have an interview with you. Like, I thought we was going to sit down and talk. And my husband was like, yeah, babe, I think this is important. I think this is one of those things, like bringing people together to share their experiences to help other people on their journey.
Yeah.
So after having so many conversations, it's been so healing talking to y'all because I'm like, damn, I thought that was just me. Like,
Yeah.
I was the only one that had this. Like, not that I felt like I was the only one going through these things by myself, but to hear other people talk about it, it's just like, right? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that makes us feel less alone. It makes us feel heard and seen. And I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of us need that, especially after the last couple of years, getting used to being in isolation, to kind of like that being what you do, but it not being the healthiest thing to go about. Um,
Mm-hmm.
not the right way to go about it. So yeah, I just think a lot of us coming together, which can be kind of scary. I know it is for me sometimes. And to have these uncomfortable but very much crucial conversations
Yeah.
about the industry and about how we work with people, it's just important. And it's uncomfortable, but it's just for the best. So yeah.
Yeah, and like shout outs to you for doing it, like for setting an intention and have an idea and then following through with it. You
Yeah.
know, like that takes a lot of work too. So it's appreciated that you're opening up your space and your bandwidth to like take in these stories and have a place for artists to really feel, damn, yeah, I can be open and vulnerable and express myself, and
Yeah.
hopefully it's well received on the other side. So I really want to say that shout outs to you,
Appreciate
and
it.
I'm excited to see what the rest of the season looks like. Like I look forward to like hearing all the episodes. Like I'm really looking forward to that.
Me too. Me too. Me too. And it's been a lot of work, but I think this is changing a lot on how I am approaching my work and what's important to me and how I kind of want to lean into like other things. I feel like we need some love. Like creatives, we need love. We need tools. And
Mm-hmm.
we need things too, you know. So I was just like, oh, that was just another, this has been a part of that creative process, the inspiration to come up with other things and other ways that I feel like we can show up for and with each other in this community. So I think it's gonna be dope and
Absolutely.
I'm excited for you to hear. Last question,
Hell yeah.
and I'm gonna let you go.
Okay.
But from everything that you've learned during your journey, from the time you started to now, what would you say to your younger self, or whenever you started, when you went from, I don't know, when you, I guess when you started to paint or to go into the art lane from fashion blogging, like what would you tell yourself with everything you've learned and know now?
Mm. I mean, I would just like reminder that I really am it. Like I have the capability to hustle,
Hmm.
to show up with grit and hunger and drive. Um, I am it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to continue to show up in every capacity that I can, whether it's the fashion blogging stage to where I'm at now. I just always been driven. And I know that the reason why I'm here today is because I hustle.
Right.
I work so much and I work so passionately and I'm so focused
Hmm.
that it makes it hard for like the exterior noise to really get me distracted. So if I was to look at her when she or myself when I'm younger, I just got a reminder that you are it. Like just watch it. Just watch it unfold. Don't trip. You
Yeah.
really are that girl. Like, you know,
Yeah.
I really am.
Yeah.
And that's something that I'm still getting to know, but there's so much power in recognizing your value and what and who
Yeah.
you are and what you bring to the table. So after all my experiences, I really do want to say that like, yeah, I really am it.
Yeah, that's what's up. I feel like a lot of people need to hear that too. Like you are the only make of yourself. Like you're so unique. No one like you.
Mm,
Even if you have the same experiences with someone or ask someone else, or the same subject matter, you still are
yeah,
going to produce something totally different. And I think standing confidently in that is the sauce, and knowing that
yeah.
you are the only one that can bring what you're going to bring to this earth, and somebody's
Hmm.
waiting on it. So we do need to be like, yeah, I am it. I am that girl.
Yeah.
Um, I was listening to Beyonce in the car, and I was on my way to Pier Bar, but I was like, you know what? Let me get myself together. But
Yeah.
when she said that part, like, I'm one of one, I'm number one, I'm the only one. Like, yeah, she like, no one can do it like me. And I feel like we all
Right.
need to be standing 10 toes down in what we produce, who
Hmm.
we are. And it's
Hmm.
so, like you said, it's important, and it's so much power in learning and knowing your self value. Cause then like no one can shake it. That's your anchor, you know? So
Hmm.
I'm so glad you touched
Absolutely.
on that.
Yeah. Yeah, hell
Yes.
yeah. Cause and then when I look at all the other artists that I admire, I'm like, yeah, they're in their own lane, focused, hungry, you know, like
Yeah.
they really show themselves. And I just want more of that. You know, I want to
Yeah.
see everybody around me exuding that same kind of energy that like you are, like you said, one of one, and take that, run with
Yep.
it.
run with that full
Mm-hmm.
speed. Yeah. Thank you so much. And before we get off, let everyone know how to find you, where you hang out, and all the things.
I'm always on the internet. You know, I'm all over the place. But you can also check me out on my website, which is www.coval.co. There I have like blog posts, all my latest work. Yeah, so that's where you can find me.
Yay! Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
I know, finally, in like kind of real life, kind of not.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that today's discussion sparked your creativity and inspired you to embrace your unique journey. Don't forget to share your thoughts, stories, and creations with me. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Leave a review, and let's continue to support and inspire one another on this incredible journey. Until next time, keep creating.